Hi, yeah, my name's Pete. I'm the head of product at Fedi. We're going to talk today about Federated OS and Fedi. Sorry, I'm going to move that in. So before I get started, I just want to say a couple of bits and pieces around the particular solution and the problem that we're facing at the moment, and a little bit to unpack that. So the problem that I think we have is one of control. And I think that's a problem that a lot of people in this particular conference would resonate with. And it's really about the fact that when it comes to your money, your data, your communication systems, and your online life, we give away a lot of that control to these people over here, the people who are a long way away from us that just don't really have our best interests at heart. And so in Bitcoin particularly, we have lots of ways with our money to bring that control back and make it a little bit closer to where we are and under our control and with Bitcoin. But maybe a little bit less so with the communications and the data. When it comes to things like self-hosting what you do, that can be very difficult. So with Fedi, what we're trying to do is provide some solutions for people to this, to say, okay, well, if you want to take control of your money and your data, maybe you don't need to give it all to this large entity over here that's very remote from you, that's very far away, that doesn't have your best interests at heart. But maybe you're not quite ready to bring it in and own everything yourself. Okay, well, can we land something on that scale that's a little bit closer to you that you can control better, maybe inside your local community, that'll allow you to take control of your money, your data, your online life, okay? So that's what we're here to do today. That's what the Federated OS is. It's a way of doing that, and then how you interact with it. And we'll explore that today. Okay, so, all right. So the way we're going to do this is we've got 3 different sections that I'm going to go through today. So the first is why might we have a Federated OS? So why might it be interesting? What does it look like broadly deployed, and what sort of benefits would that give us? The second is what can you try now? So hopefully you've all got the Fedi app installed on your phone, you've been playing around with it, you've left us lots of great feedback in the form, and I'll be reading all that on the flight home and enjoying all of it. The next is going to be, how do you make your own Federated OS? So what does it mean to have it? And what can you customize and get out of this thing when you deploy it in your own community? All right. So first things first, to set up what a world looks like with lots of federations and in it, what I want to do is just take a slightly different perspective of how I like to think about Bitcoin. And I think the way we traditionally think about Bitcoin is like the 90s video game Doom. And it's all about being like a first-person shooter, and it's me, it's my node, it's my lightning channel. I've got one channel, like everything else is out there in the world, and I see everything from this perspective. But the 90s had more games than Doom. We also had Command and Conquer. And Command and Conquer takes a very different perspective. This is more of a map grid. Now we're looking at the world with lots of different places in it. And there's lots of different things that are happening all over the map, and the situation changes as we move around. So today, when we talk about federations and the future and how that could work with Bitcoin, I want you to keep in mind a map. And I'm going to really go hard on this analogy in a minute. So, all right, so here's our world, and here's our map. And we're going to start filling in our map, and we're going to start with our big country manors, our homesteads, the places that are all ours. And this is like your cold storage, right? This is your Bitcoin. It lives in your house, and you can keep it there, and you own everything there, and you set your rules. This is your cold storage. It's your node. Your Bitcoin that's there acts like that, right? Some people live in nice big houses, and they have a road that comes out of the house. That's like your lightning channel. It's how you get out into the rest of the world. So bear that in mind. Some other people might live in a village. And in the village, it's a bunch of people that live together, they club together, and they help each other out, and they're kind of close. It's a slightly different setup. It's a little bit maybe more anonymous and private than you are in your own house. But there's more people around there, you help each other out, and you collaborate. Sometimes, even a person that lives in a big house might go to town. And there's good reasons to go to town. Maybe there's more things that I can buy, there's more experiences that I can indulge in, and I decide to go to town every now and again. And it's a little bit more anonymous, and I can do a little bit more things, and the situation of what I'm allowed to do changes as I move around this map. And so whilst the majority of my stuff might be in my house, I might take some of my things and take them to town. And we could imagine that being like taking some of your Bitcoin and placing it somewhere else so that you get new properties for that Bitcoin. And finally, sometimes I might like to go to a beautiful city like Prague, or I might like to go somewhere a little bit cheeky like Vegas, where I can do all sorts of things that I'm not allowed to do at home. And I wouldn't take everything in my house to Vegas because that would be insane. I would just pack a few things in my suitcase and I'd fly off to Vegas, do what I want to do. Nobody needs to know what happens in Vegas, and then I can return home, jobs are good. And the way I might move around like that is I'd use in the real world sort of roads, planes, trains. And in a Bitcoin world, I can connect all of these different places by a network called Lightning. And Lightning is my way of saying, like, sometimes I'll be at home and I might keep the majority of my funds at home, but every now and again I might come to town. And in town, I get a bit more anonymity and I get a bit more services available to me, and I make most of my payments there because that's my community that I like to interact with. And every now and again, I'll take a cheeky little holiday to Vegas and do what I want to do there. But I can move around this map and be in different places. Now, the reason to set up that analogy is that what we see is that as we move around these different places on the map, we can change our experience. So if we do this in real life, what we find is when I go to Vegas, I'm allowed to do different things than I was allowed to do at home or in the town where I grew up. I have a very different experience. And the same can be true of your Bitcoin as you move it around this map. And we can think of these different places on the map as like different, almost like computer systems, where we might want to put our Bitcoin, and when we put our Bitcoin in this new place, it can get a new property. And we can start to build some of those using Fedi mints, which is what we're going to come on to in a minute. So some of the things that we might get out of moving around that map, say I was a human rights defender and I really care about privacy because I'm dealing with an oppressive government. Well, maybe I want to go to a particular city that's very private when I spend my Bitcoin. Maybe I do like a little bit of Vegas. Maybe I want to go to a particular place with my Bitcoin where it inherits a lot more programmability, for instance. So why don't I send some Bitcoin there? So we can have this concept of making our Bitcoin magic by just moving it around different places. Okay. The problem is trust. So as you move around the map, you inherit different trust frameworks for those different places. So my life is different in Vegas as it is in my hometown, so I do make some trade-offs for trust to get these magic Bitcoin properties. So what do we think the correct trust balance is? Well, we think that needs to be discovered. So this is where Fedi mints come in. So the idea of a Fedi mint is it allows you inside a community to nominate a set of trusted community members, and then they can run a federation, like a back-end server for your Bitcoin wallet, for your money and your data, for the benefit of the community. And now that can host custody of Bitcoin, it can host Lightning channels, and it can allow you to work in a more scalable, private, and extensible way. So Fedi Mint is how we can build these different towns, cities, and villages all over the internet that we can travel between using Lightning. And as we move around between these towns, cities, and villages, we get these magic properties that we might be interested in at the time, like privacy, extensibility, and so on. Okay, so what would the world look like? I just want to make this point quite clear that, Fedi isn't here to be a custodian of anybody's Bitcoin. We're here to make tools in the Fedi Mint, the open source project that we contribute to, so you can run your own federations. And then what we're building with Fedi in the Federated OS is a way to interact with that stack. So how can we make it easy to deploy, easy to manage, and then easy to add additional functionality onto that stack so you can provide services to your community? So the end-term goal is sort of the 21 million federations spread around the map with many different properties. Okay? I think okay. All right, so what can we try now? What does it look like? So it's a big claim. We'll come on to how we extend it in a moment, but right now you should all have on your phones the Fedi app, and you'll be part of the BTC Prague Federation. And there's a few different things that you can experiment with. So inside the app, one of the first things you might see is that you've got you can do multiple federations. So if you're already playing with our pilot, our alpha release, we can access it fedi.xyz/builders. That'll actually give you like a signet version of a federation that you can play around with and see. And you can flip between that and the mainnet version all inside the same app. And that's available with BTC Prague. If I just click on here. Is this going to go? Yeah, OK. Yeah, so what we see in the animation here is the concept of, say, an offline transaction. So inside the app now, we move into this federation, we get some magic powers. One of those magic things you can do with Bitcoin is start to transact it offline with no internet. So you tap the little cloud in your app in the top corner there. It's going to move it into offline mode. You get an animated QR, you can scan that, and you send the sats through the camera. So a little one to play around with. You can also do 24/7 private Lightning transactions. They all go through Lightning despite the fact that it's eCash held in the wallet. There's also a chat server embedded in this. So again, we don't use a remote chat server. It's hosted in the same infrastructure that runs the federation that allows the community to own its own chat data. Inside the chat, you get groups, announcement groups, various things. And you can also do Zaps, effectively, chat Zaps, chaps, as we sometimes like to call them, which allows you can pop into a chat. On here, you hit the little wallet in the corner. Maybe you send a little message there. Nice. And then you can push the eCash directly through the chat. Now, you can do that with a push payment, or you can request an invoice through there. Works in a very similar way. So here we go. We hit the button, hit the send to confirm, boom. And we can push those chats out. Now, this is something that we've seen as we've been doing training in various places around the world. Sometimes when you're explaining the QR scans and sends to people, they can get a little bit confused. As soon as I show somebody a chat payment, I just get, oh, I can WhatsApp money. Fine, I get it. You don't need to show me anymore. And all of a sudden, everybody starts sending each other cash. The next bit, I'm going to go into more detail in a sec, but we'll see the important thing here is the home screen of the app, the most important real estate we have, is completely up for grabs for the owners of the community. They can put whatever services and apps they want on that screen. Okay, well, I'll show you how we're going to do that in a minute. But all of these sites interact directly with the wallet. You can make payments to and from them, and you can use account management from the keys on the device. So I can log into Stacker News and be boosting posts in seconds. All right, let's going to move on to how you configure your own Fedi OS. So when it comes to deploying your federation in your community, and maybe the way to imagine this is that, as I said earlier, like if you want to go and onboard billions of people to Bitcoin, we've got a problem of like how we bring everybody on, and we don't want everybody ending up in these like large curly-headed custodians, and we ideally want everybody coming in as self-custody, but there's some people who are going to struggle with this. So what we try and provide through this Federated OS is a way that you can say, take a community of 10,000 people, and instead of getting 10,000 people to self-custody everything about their money and their data, we instead get 10 people in that community to really care, and then they turn around and act as a shield, and they provide that service back to everybody else in that community. So we can orange pill 10, gain 10,000. That's the sort of game. And then to do that, they need a set of automated tools that are going to make it easy. And those tools come in two key components, which are on the screen right now. We have FediMint and its FediMint modules, and then we have Fedi and the Fedi mods. So the FediMint modules are ways that we can add really low-level flexible functionality to the back-end system that runs a FediMint. So this would be things done by Rust engineers and Bitcoin wizards that really know their stuff. And they might implement things like simplicity as a smart contract language inside the Fedi Mint. So you could have any expressive smart contract you want that runs locally inside this Fedi Mint. So you could kind of think of anything you can do on another blockchain, you could just move into a Fedi Mint and run at scale. With Fedi Mods, these are simpler apps, a little bit more cheeky, a little bit nice. They actually are what get delivered on the front page of the Fedi app. So these are open standards-based web development, nice and easy to put together. And we're going to be spending a lot of time with developers over the next 6 months, showing them how to build Fedi mods, how to deploy them into federations, and then bringing a market of users to those app developers so they can instantly get paid at the click of a button. Okay, so just to dig into Fedi Mint modules, some of the things that you might build with the Fedi Mint modules are the lower level functionality. So this is the stuff that might run in the back end. So we custody Bitcoin in a federation, or maybe we want to custody USD as well. So that could be various different forms, from stable coins to some sort of smart contract based synthetic USD or local currency that you might want. There's been a lot of talk online. I think like Matt Odell had a discussion with somebody that led to this idea of federated mining pools. So like, how can we take the payouts of mining pools and make them a lot more private? How can we start to federate block construction so one pool isn't in charge of the block construction, and we can prove that. As I said, we can also add full smart contract-based capabilities. There's been a lot of interest in adding password management into this, so that again, when you recover your passwords, or if you want to store something like this that is becoming increasingly important in this modern age, maybe you don't want to trust it to LastPass because they don't appear to be trustworthy. Other things that are coming along, we're actively looking at how we would integrate with things like state chains, Liquid and Arc, and different ways of doing custody in layers 1 and 2. And we have designs for a lot of this stuff as well. So it's a very flexible system to add more back-end functionality. In the Fedi mods, looks a little bit different. So this is the front-end work. So phase 1, well, 3 phases. We start with open Lightning standards, we move to bulletproof hosting, and then we add Fedi Mint APIs. So I'll go through these one at a time. So open Lightning standards. If we go back to this image of the front screen, as I say, this is the primo real estate in the app. This is the thing that everybody wants to have their version of the app on there. So what can we do with these apps? So right now, the core features are through open Lightning network standards. So we have WebLN, and we can use WebLN for moving money and making payments in and out of the wallet. So if you go to Stacker News, you can go to Stacker News. You could use a login with Lightning. That's going to use keys that are already on the device to generate you a username and log in. So no more password management there. Then you can do a deposit into there. So it'll hit deposit, it'll pop up a little request, and you hit yes, and you've got money inside Stacker News. You want to get that money back out, you hit take it out, pops up a little confirmation, and your money's now out. So we have a really slick way of moving money in and out. And I'd like you to try that today and give us feedback where you think that could be improved. But that's our open standards and how they work. So the next thing that we're looking to do is to solve a problem around deployment. So obviously, that's using sites that exist on the web. Now we can make those more customized and really tune those flows for the particular needs that a community has. But one of the things that we introduce with the websites is that point of control or deplatforming or potentially network connectivity issues. So sometimes you might have a much better local area network than you do have your backhaul to the internet. So we're going to move the hosting of those apps onto the federation itself. So that now allows us to fully control where the app runs and what access it has, and then serve that out to our users. And this then works around this idea of somebody else taking away access to that app that your community relies on. And so we'll have simple processes to deploy the apps directly onto the federation. And one of the reasons we do that is it starts to enable phase 3 when things start to get very interesting. So in phase 3, now we start to use Fedi Mint API layer to then interact more broadly with both the contracts that are inside the Fedi Mint So again, you could have any sort of simplicity-based smart contract that you want in there that you could design. You could deploy a whole EVM in there if that's your bag. Some other things that we have is like the chat server runs on the same infrastructure. So now you've got local API-based access to all the chat framework and the bot framework that's running inside your federation. We also have other communities that are looking at serving like local open source AI, large language models from the community. So now you could host your AI-based personal assistant from your federation. What's more, you can anonymously fund that open source AI with eCash, and he can use that eCash to go and pay another robot further down the line to do jobs for him. So there's a lot of flexibility we get in this model. And so this is the end goal of phase 3 that we're going to be working towards throughout this year. And effectively, it will give your web app access to all of the consensus code that is running inside that federation. Okay. So this is a model that we've used internally as well. So if we just look at the animation on the screen there, that's my face, great. We've got a social backup. So when we build everything on Fedimint, we've built it using this pattern already, just to dog food our own designs and architecture. And so what we have here is a backup Fedimint module that will handle backup and recovery of eCash from a seed phrase. And then what we bolt onto the front of that is a Fedi mod, which is like what you're seeing in the user interface here, where we can effectively do a face-based backup, so it's social recovery. So without trying to write down any of the 12 words that I need, that's available as an option. I can instead whip out my phone, take a 2-second video of myself, send it to a friend, and I've now backed up my entire Fedi account. So just to give you an idea of what's going on in the background, you pull up the camera, you record the video of yourself, and we take that video and we just create a hash of that, and then that's going to be our coat hook that we're going to use to get back what we need at the end. We also generate a secret salt, a very long, complex password, and we use that to encrypt 4 shards of our password. So we split the password up into 4 bits and we encrypt them all, and then we send each one of those off to the guardians of the Federation. Now, the Federation guardians can't do anything with that. They don't know who sent it to them, and they can't collude to look at the key because it's all encrypted. And so you take your video, you share that with some friends, not with the guardians, because that could de-anonymize us, but any of the other 8 billion people in the world, fair game. So now the question would be, okay, well, how do we recover that? So the guardians are going to do some AAI for us. So this is one of Obi's things that he often talks to me. He says, your artificial intelligence, which is we get the human to do something that an artificial intelligence might do, which is look at your face and see if you're the same person that was in this video that you submitted a couple of years ago. So what you do is you go back to your friend or your cloud storage or wherever you kept this video, and you pull it out and you load it into the Fedi app. What happens in the Fedi app is it generates a little QR code, and you'll see that in this little animation flow in a moment. And then you go to the guardians and you say, oh, can you help me recover my account? And the guardians are going to get this little checklist, and they can check that you're not under duress in any way, that nobody's got a gun to your head, or nobody's trying to force you to do something you don't want. And they scan the QR code, and for the first time ever, they get access to this video. And they pull the video down to their phone, and they say, oh, is this the same person? Now, if it's clearly not the same person, it's a no, nothing happens. All good. If it is the same person, we hit yes, you hit continue, and then that one shard can be identified by the hash of the video as returned to your phone. You can do that 3 out of 4 times with the guardians, and you can recover all of your money and all of your accounts and your chat history from your face with a quick process. So that's a module example that we built. Here's the details of what went on under the hood, but I'm pretty sure I said all of those, so I'll flick through. All right. Another one I might highlight is something called stability pools. So there was some stability pool fans in the audience. That's good. That's good. If I say stability pool, you say, okay, cool, it's good, nice. Right. So what's going on here? So at the start of the year, we were curious to see how the community would respond to a hackathon. We said, okay, well, who's out there that could build these things, and what are the sort of things they might build, and what's the interest? The winner of that process was this, which is quite a magical little contract. And it sits inside the Federation, and it effectively allows you to create a US dollar account inside the Federation using only Bitcoin. So simply put, it creates a contract with two sides to it. One has stability seekers, one has stability providers. If you want US dollars, you put some eCash in the stability seekers side. If you want to be, want to help, you can put your Bitcoin in the stability provider side, and you can provide stability to these guys for a fee. So your experience is over on the right-hand side here. If you want your dollars, you simply go into this contract, deposit, I guess, $400 of Bitcoin. You run you confirm that, the eCash moves in, and you now have a dollar-locked account onside that Federation, and it uses only the trust assumptions that you already had inside that Federation. So you're still only trusting the guardians to make sure that that is held correctly with no exposure to external counterparty risk. So that's one that we're hoping to get out onto our Fedi Alpha Signet soon, so people can start to play around with that and just experience the look and feel. All right. So that sort of brings us towards the end of the examples and like how we see building on Fedi and Fedi Mint. So maybe to summarize, like what we have in Fedi is this opportunity to create all of these different places on the internet that you can put your Bitcoin. And when you put your Bitcoin in those places, we have ways to build magic properties for that Bitcoin where it can go offline, become very scalable, become very private, or even inherit any sort of extensibility and programmability we want. So we're going to be looking for more people in the community to come out to help us build some of these Fedi Mint modules and for these Fedi mods. And we're going to commit to getting out there and building an audience of people that want to use them and a market for you. So, please reach out. We'll be at the booth. This is the QR code if you want to get into the Fedi app today. I know it's towards the end of the conference, but please join us, give us feedback, and I'd like to hear more. So thank you.